"I'll give you my land if you take this woman in," he laughed, loud enough for the whole town to hear. Dust circled around the wooden porch as the heavy-hearted woman stood alone, eyes lowered, waiting for someone to claim her fate. No one stepped forward. Everyone feared what came with her past, but when a silent cowboy placed his hand on her shoulder, the laughter stopped like a gunshot cutting through church air. Was she really a burden, or the key to a truth no one dared to face? The church bell rang slow, like it didn't want to witness what was happening in the middle of town. A thick wind pushed sand across the empty street, brushing against the woman's dress as she stood on the steps of the old courthouse, hands shaking behind her back. She wasn't tied, but she looked as though invisible ropes still pulled at her. A group of townsfolk watched from the shade, whispering as if she carried some invisible storm with her. Her eyes were red from sleepless nights, and her breath came in small, careful pulls, like she wasn't sure she deserved air. The tall man on the porch leaned against the railing, boots polished, voice sharp like broken glass. "She needs a roof," he said, pretending to sound generous. "And she needs someone desperate enough to accept her." Nobody answered him. The woman lowered her chin as if waiting for another blow she could not see. He let out a slow grin, the kind that made hearts sink. "I'll give you my land if you take this woman in." His words rolled across the street like a cruel dare, meant not to help her but to shame her. Silence spread like smoke. A pair of boots stopped near the porch. The dust on the boots showed long roads, cold nights, and battles fought with no audience. The man did not look up, but his voice carried enough weight to move the air. "Don't joke about a person's life." The crowd stiffened. The woman slowly turned her head, surprised someone spoke for her at all. The tall man smirked, tapping the rail with his finger. "You care? Then take her." The cowboy didn't answer right away. He stepped closer to the woman instead, removing his thin scarf and gently placing it around her shoulders, shielding her from the cutting wind. A soft act, small but enough to change the air. Her lips trembled. Why would you help me?" she whispered. He kept his eyes on her, not the crowd, because no one should stand alone out here. The tall man's grin faded. The trade no longer looked like a joke. And then, from behind a swinging saloon door, a shadow stepped out. "You sure you know who you're protecting?" A hush fell over the dusty street as the shadow stepped forward, boots sinking slowly into the dirt. The crowd shifted, some pretending not to watch while others leaned closer, drawn by something dark, like a storm forming without clouds. The woman pulled the scarf tighter around her shoulders, holding it as if it were the first kind touch she had felt in years. The cowboy kept himself still, one hand near his belt, not in threat but in quiet readiness. His breath was slow, steady, like a man who knew that words could bruise more than fists. "What do you want?" he asked. The man stepping out of the saloon doorway didn't rush. His coat swung gently with each step, hat low, eyes hidden from the sun. When he stopped near the porch, his voice was low, almost bored. "You're making a mistake," he said. "You don't know what she carries." The cowboy didn't look away. "You talk like she's a burden." "Why?" A short laugh came from the porch. "Because she is," the tall man answered. "Ask anyone here." The woman squeezed her fingers together, barely finding her voice. "Please, don't speak for me." The tall man waved his hand like swatting a fly. "She cost this town more than she ever gave." A murmur rolled through the onlookers. The cowboy scanned their eyes. None held anger, only embarrassment, like people who feared guilt by association. "Tell me what she did," he said. The tall man leaned closer, voice dripping with false pity. "Let's just say she was trusted, and she broke it." Wind chimes rattled on a nearby porch, though there was no breeze strong enough to move them. The shadowed man near the saloon spoke again, softer this time. "You can walk away. No shame in it." The cowboy tilted his head slightly. "There's shame in leaving someone alone." For the first time, the woman lifted her face fully. Tears didn't fall. That would have been easier. Instead, her eyes held the reflection of someone trying to decide if she was worth helping. "You don't understand," she whispered. "Taking me is not simple." He answered without hesitating. "Life here never is." A faint, fragile breath escaped her lungs, almost relief but not quite. The tall man folded his arms, amused. "So you accept the bargain?" The cowboy looked at the woman, not at the offer. "I accept being decent," he said. The tall man rolled his eyes. "That's not what I asked." The cowboy raised his chin slightly, and I answered what mattered. The silence that followed was heavier than gun smoke. Their boy near the general store whispered, "Why won't they just tell the story?" His mother pulled him back, eyes wide. "Hush," she whispered. "Stories can ruin lives." The cowboy placed his coat gently around the woman, covering her arms completely. It was not charity. It was a declaration that she was no longer public property. She blinked slowly, like warmth hurt more than cold. "Thank you," she whispered. He gave a single nod. "Oh, you walk with me." The tall man stepped forward, boots thudding on the porch. "You can't take her without knowing the price." The cowboy didn't flinch. "Then speak it." The tall man smiled with slow cruelty. "You can never bring her back." Those words turned the air colder than desert nightfall. The woman shut her eyes as if stabbed by memory. The crowd stepped back, not from her, but from the sentence itself. "She belongs nowhere," the tall man added. "And if you defend her, neither will you." The cowboy finally turned to face him fully. "A home isn't given by towns," he said. "It's made by hands." For a moment, no one moved. The shadowed man near the saloon door gave a slow, thoughtful nod, almost respectful. "Then may the wind guide you," he murmured, "because the ground won't." The cowboy touched the woman's arm gently. "Can you walk?" She hesitated, then whispered, "I will try." They stepped off the courthouse porch together, dust lifting around their boots like ghosts rising. The crowd parted, not for respect, but fear. And as they crossed the street, a sudden sound tore through the stillness. A paper slammed against a wall, held by a single nail, flapping like a dying bird. The cowboy turned his head slowly. The woman froze. On the paper was her face, and a single word written in red ink. "Return." The paper slapped against the wall again, carried by a sudden gust, like it wanted everyone to read it. The woman's breath stilled. Her shoulders tightened beneath the cowboy's coat. She didn't move toward it, as though even turning her head might bring old ghosts running. The cowboy stepped closer to the paper, his boots crunching over dry soil. He read the single word again, traced the rough strokes, noticed the color wasn't ordinary ink. It looked thicker, darker, almost cruel in its choice. "What does this mean?" he asked, voice steady. The tall man answered without guilt. "It means she wasn't supposed to return." A hush spread through the crowd. The woman's voice trembled. "Please, God, don't read more." The cowboy didn't turn away from her, but from the wall he pulled the paper free, folding it carefully rather than tearing it, respect where others offered shame. "Who posted it?" he asked. No one spoke. Eyes dropped like stones. The shadowed man near the saloon shifted slightly. "Some debts aren't counted with coins," he murmured. "They're counted with memories." The cowboy studied the woman. "Did you leave by choice?" Her lips parted, but no answer came. Instead, tears filled her eyes, not falling, caught between fear and dignity. She turned away, whispering only, "Some things are safer, unspoken here." That sentence told him enough to know silence wasn't consent. It was survival. He took a small step closer, lowering his voice so only she heard. "You're not alone. You walk by choice now." Her fingers clutched the edge of his coat like she needed something real to anchor her. The tall man scoffed. "You think you can rewrite her past?" The cowboy faced him calmly. "No, she will speak it herself when ready." A few townsfolk exchanged nervous looks, as if the very idea of her telling her story carried risk for every person present. The tall man pointed at the sign. "That word stays true. She brought trouble before." The cowboy's eyes narrowed. "Trouble or justice?" The tall man didn't answer, jaw tightening. A soft tremor of wind carried the distant echo of horses, faint but growing. It rolled like thunder over the hills, not loud enough to be danger, but warning enough to pinch the air tight. The cowboy glanced around. "Who else knows she's back?" No one answered. The woman's steps wavered. "We shouldn't stay here." He nodded and helped her walk toward the edge of town, away from the courthouse and its staring eyes. A small girl holding a rag doll whispered behind them, "Why are they afraid of her?" The mother hushed her quick, voice shaking, "Because truth travels faster than bullets." As they reached the old water pump, the woman leaned against it to rest. Her breaths were shallow, like she was trying not to make noise in a room full of sleeping wolves. The cowboy set down his saddlebag and opened it slowly, pulling out a tin cup and a cloth. He wet the cloth gently and handed it to her. "Wipe your face," he said softly. "Dust hides tears here, but not pain." She pressed the cloth to her cheeks, surprised by its warmth. "Why are you helping me?" she whispered. "Because you deserve help," he replied. She stared at the ground. "No one ever agreed with that." He offered her the cup. "Drink slow." She took a sip, then held it close with both hands like it might disappear if she blinked. "That sign," she whispered. "It wasn't made for strangers." The cowboy sat on a low wooden crate, giving her space. "Then who?" She hesitated, fingers shaking. "For anyone who forgot where I came from." He held her gaze. "Tell me when ready." Silence settled, different this time, not hostile, but patient. Then he noticed something carved faintly into the wooden post of the pump. Initials, 2 letters crossed out, and beneath them a date burned into the grain. His eyes traced it slowly. The woman saw where he was looking and turned pale. "Don't touch that," she whispered. "Why?" Her throat tightened. "Because if they see you reading it, they'll think you already know." Before he could ask more, a sharp metallic clank rang from behind them, the sound of a telegraph office latch slamming open. A rider stepped out, holding a sealed envelope marked with a town seal. He looked straight at the woman. "Message arrived this morning," he said. "About you." The cowboy stood slowly. The rider held the envelope toward them, but didn't step closer. "It says she must be escorted immediately." The woman backed away, breath breaking. "Escorted where?" the cowboy asked. The rider didn't blink. "To the place she escaped from." The woman stared at the envelope like it carried fire instead of ink. Her lips parted, but no sound came out, only a slow breath that shivered through her chest. The cowboy stepped between her and the rider, not in threat, but in quiet protection. "Who sent that message?" he asked. The rider looked uncomfortable now, fingers tightening around the paper. "It came through the wire at sunrise, no sender listed." The cowboy didn't move. "Hand it here." The rider hesitated, eyes drifting to the tall man still watching from the porch. When their gazes met, something silent passed between them, not fear but caution, like both knew that envelope held more power spoken aloud than opened. The rider swallowed hard and held it out. "I shouldn't read it." "My work ends here." The cowboy took the envelope with 2 fingers, careful not to tear it. The woman stepped backward, hands trembling near her chest. "Don't," she whispered. "Please don't open it here." The cowboy looked at her with calm eyes. "Then where?" She turned away from town, pointing faintly toward the hills. "A place where wind carries secrets, not people." The rider cleared his throat. Uneasy. "You both should hurry. This won't stay quiet long." From somewhere across the street, a door slammed, not from anger but fear. The town no longer felt like a place with walls and windows. It felt like a mouth closing around them. The cowboy nodded. "Thank you for bringing it." The rider stepped back, almost relieved. "Careful on those hills. Some truths echo too loud." The cowboy helped the woman take her first step away from town. As they walked, the tall man's voice followed them through the dust. "You think hills can hide you?" The cowboy didn't turn. "They hide what deserves peace." The tall man let out a thin smile. "Peace isn't for everyone." The woman flinched, but the cowboy kept her moving. Their steps left 2 lonely trails behind them, hers unsteady and small, his steady and measured, like he had decided he would not leave even if she asked. When they reached the first low ridge, the town grew smaller behind them, swallowed by distance and silence. Only then did she speak. "You shouldn't have taken the message." "A message doesn't choose my road," he said. She stopped walking and faced him, eyes full of something heavier than sorrow. "If you read it, you will see what they see." He held her gaze. "I want to know who you are, not who they say." She looked down, clutching her sleeves. Sometimes the world believes the louder voice. He unfolded the top of his coat around her shoulders again, adjusting it gently. Then we speak softly and prove louder. For a moment she stood frozen, touched by the idea that gentleness could act like strength. They walked until the town noise faded completely. The wind carried only the smell of sage and the distant cry of a hawk circling high. Near an abandoned wooden corral, she stopped and pressed her palm to an old post, as though touching a memory. "This place knows me," she whispered. "Good or bad?" the cowboy asked. Her voice lowered to almost nothing. "Both." He looked around, scanning for safety. "Can we talk here?" She nodded slowly, but her eyes never left the ground. People used to meet here in secret. Promises and warnings. The cowboy lifted the envelope between them. "You want me to open it?" she breathed in shakily. "Not with me facing it." He respected that, stepping aside so she could stand with her back turned. His fingers slid under the seal, opening it with quiet care. Inside, a single sheet rested. No signature, no greeting, only typed black letters. He began reading silently, but it wasn't long before he had to speak aloud, because the weight of words demanded witness. "Do not shelter her." She was not cast out, she escaped. The woman shook where she stood, her hands covering her face. He continued, slower. "She carries information that cannot return home." Silence fell so heavy it seemed to bend the wind. He lowered the paper. "What did you escape?" She shook her head rapidly, voice breaking. "If I tell, you become part of it." He folded the paper carefully, placing it inside his coat. "I choose my path. Speak when ready." A drop of rain landed near her boot, sudden, unexpected, the sky still clear but ready to turn. She held the fence tight, whispering through shaken breath. "They say I know something that can change land rights." The cowboy's eyes narrowed. "Yours?" She turned toward him slowly, eyes wide with fear. "No, the land everyone fights over." Before he could answer, distant thunder rumbled, not from the sky, but from hooves, many hooves, coming fast. The rumble of hooves grew fuller, spreading across the dry hills like a warning drum. The woman's breath caught, and she turned toward the cowboy, fear rising fast in her eyes. "They're coming for me," she whispered. The cowboy stepped closer, voice steady and grounded. "Hooves don't always mean hunters." She shook her head hard. "These ones do." The sound carved through the quiet air, dust lifting from the earth before any riders appeared. It was the kind of arrival meant to unsettle, not approach unseen. The cowboy looked toward a shallow cut in the land. "Move down behind the posts," she hesitated. "I won't hide like a thief." He held her gaze. "Not hiding, choosing ground." She swallowed, nodding slowly, then stepped behind the old corral boards. The rain clouds above them thickened, though the first drops fell slow, as if deciding where to land. The riders came into view, and 4 of them, moving with practiced formation. Their coats were long, hats low, horses strong enough to cover miles without pause. They did not approach fast, but purposeful. The cowboy stood in the open, hands away from his belt. His calm body stance was his first message, not running, not provoking. The lead rider slowed, raising one hand, the other 3 held back slightly, forming a loose half-circle. "Afternoon," the leader called. "Afternoon," the cowboy answered. The leader's eyes shifted, searching. "You're holding someone who belongs elsewhere." The cowboy replied gently, "People belong where dignity lives." The leader studied him, expression unreadable. "That paper was sent for good reason." "Papers carry ink," the cowboy said. "Lives carry truth." A short silence followed, cut only by a slow thunder roll behind the clouds. The leader leaned forward in his saddle. "Where is she?" The woman stepped forward before the cowboy answered. Her voice shook, but she forced it to hold. "I'm right here." The riders exchanged quick looks, not surprised, but calculating. The leader spoke carefully. "You left without permission." Her answer came soft. "I left because silence became a cage." He shifted slightly. "You had a duty to stay." She pressed her hand to her chest. "Duty without voice is chains." The men behind him tensed, but he lifted a hand, signaling patience. The cowboy stepped half a pace closer to her. "What is it you think she holds?" The leader turned his gaze to the torn horizon. "There are claims disputed. Land, borders, old deeds, and missing files." The cowboy nodded slowly. "And you think she has them?" "We know she saw them," the leader said. The woman closed her eyes. "Seeing is not stealing." The leader's tone stayed controlled. "Did you read the contents?" Her voice dropped to a whisper. "Only part." "Why?" he asked. A tear slid, finally falling. "Because I wanted to know who truly owned our ground." The leader's jaw tightened, not in anger, but in recognition that her answer was not reckless, but brave. The cowboy asked, "Why must she return?" "Because questions unsettle men with power," the leader said. The cowboy breathed deep, like he'd heard that truth too many times before. "Will she be safe if she goes back?" The leader did not answer right away. Rain began falling steady now, painting the earth darker. "Safe is not a word I can promise," he said. The woman's legs weakened, and she leaned against the corral rail. "Then I cannot return," she whispered. The leader lowered his hat brim, thoughtful. "Running makes you guilty." "So does silence," she replied. The cowboy faced him fully. "If she stays with me, what then?" The leader looked long at the cowboy's calm eyes, and something like respect flickered. "Then both of you walk roads without allies." The cowboy nodded once. "We've walked harder roads alone." The leader exhaled through his nose, rain streaking off his hat. "I can't force you with guns." The cowboy nodded. "I'm glad you know that," the leader continued, "but I can force pressure." "Pressure breaks stone," the cowboy said, "but shapes hearts." The leader stared at him, as if weighing old laws against new conscience. Finally, he spoke. "Then you must face someone higher." The cowboy asked, "Who?" The leader took a slow breath. "The land commissioner rides tomorrow." The woman's face drained of color. "He knows my name," she whispered. The leader nodded. "And he claims you saw a map." The rain thickened, drumming the old wood. The cowboy glanced at her gently. "Did you?" Her answer came as steady as she could make it. "I saw who forged it." The leader stiffened, breath halting, the kind of reaction that meant truth had just escaped where men wanted silence. Before anyone could move, lightning cracked across the ridge, revealing a fifth rider nobody noticed before, watching from higher ground with a long coat, holding something metallic in hand. The fifth rider on the ridge didn't move, only watched, his coat lifting slightly with each rise of the wind. The metal object in his hand caught the weak daylight again, turning it into a sharp flash before disappearing into shadow. The woman's breath hitched, and she stepped closer to the cowboy without thinking, instinct pulling her toward the only calm in the storm. The leader of the four riders followed her eyes and finally saw the figure above them. His jaw set tight. "He wasn't with us," the leader muttered. The cowboy stared at the ridge, voice low. "Then who is he?" the woman whispered. "Someone who waited for news." The leader turned his horse slightly. "Stay close." "Don't run blind." The woman's voice trembled. "He's not here for talk." The cowboy didn't blink. No one draws conclusions from distance, but she shook her head softly. "Some men speak with silence." A sudden gust of wind carried the heavy smell of rain-soaked dust. The fifth rider finally shifted his horse a step forward, raising the metallic object, not a gun, but a cylindrical container, sealed with wax. "A document carrier," the leader whispered. The woman stepped back, voice cracking. "It's from them?" the cowboy asked. "From where you escaped?" Her voice fell thin. "Yes." The fifth rider's voice carried down the ridge, slow and steady, like a man who didn't chase approval or fear punishment. "She must come," he called. Her voice opened doors she had no right to open. The cowboy answered without raising volume. "She opened questions, not doors." The ridge rider ignored him. "Return what she knows." The woman's knees weakened and she crouched, palms pressed to the damp earth, as if it steadied her thoughts. "I can't unknow truth," she whispered. The cowboy knelt beside her. "Truth exists, even if buried." She looked up, eyes wet. "Buried truth is safer than spoken truth." "Not for long," he replied. Thunder rolled overhead, But no rain fell now. It seemed to wait, like the sky held its breath with them. The four riders watched, unsure which side fate leaned toward. The Ridge Rider began descending slowly, never rushing, as though certainty rode with him instead of urgency. He stopped halfway down the slope, close enough for his expression to be seen, calm, almost emotionless, like a man carrying orders, not opinions. "She carries memory that belongs to council," he said. The woman looked away. Council lied. The Ridge Rider didn't react. Council chooses land. Land chooses future. The cowboy stood, voice steady. Future without truth collapses. The Ridge Rider tilted his head. Truth is decided by those who record it. The cowboy's eyes hardened, not with anger but belief. Truth is lived, not written. The Ridge Rider spoke again, tone turning colder. "If she won't return, others will answer." The woman gasped softly. "Not them, please." The cowboy asked, "Who will answer?" Her reply came quiet and broken. "Anyone who helped me leave." A painful silence fell. The cowboy lowered his voice so only she could hear. "You left to survive, not to harm." She nodded slowly, tears shaking loose. "But survival has cost." The Ridge Rider lifted the metal container once more. "Last chance to obey." The cowboy stepped forward, shoulders squared, voice like stone. "She does not obey threats." The Ridge Rider's horse pawed at the earth and turned slightly, positioning toward the distant pass. "Then council sends another message," he said. The cowboy asked, "What message?" The Ridge Rider raised his voice enough for sky and earth to share it. "At sundown, her past will be pinned for all to read." The woman's face drained of color. "No, not that place." The cowboy's voice stayed calm. "What place?" Her lips trembled. "The old mission wall?" The leader of the four riders spoke at last, tone uneasy. "That wall is used for judgment." The woman whispered, "For shame." Lightning cracked again, this time closer. The Ridge Rider turned his horse fully, preparing to leave. The cowboy raised his voice, not in threat but command. "Tell council she is not property." The Ridge Rider paused. "Council claims ownership of truth." The cowboy stepped once closer. "Truth cannot be owned." The Ridge Rider gave a hollow reply. "Then protect it before sunset." He spurred his horse and rode off into the storm. The four riders remained, watching the cowboy and woman like witnesses caught between two worlds, law and conscience. Finally, the leader spoke quietly. "You have ours. Find shelter and decide." The woman clutched the cowboy's sleeve, voice barely breath. "We must reach someone who knows the real map." "Who?" he asked. She turned slowly toward the distant dark hills. "My grandmother." The woman wiped her cheeks with the back of her sleeve, though the rain had already begun hiding her tears. The cowboy adjusted his hat, eyes scanning the horizon, measuring distance, weather, and risk all at once. "Where is she?" he asked quietly. The woman pointed toward the far hills, where mist clung to old stone like memory refusing to leave. "Beyond those ridges," she whispered. "Near the Willow Lake." The leader of the four riders shifted in his saddle. "That land holds old spirits." The cowboy answered calmly, "Spirits stay where truth sleeps." The woman drew a slow breath. "My grandmother knows what council hides." The leader studied her. "The elder who worked with land papers." She nodded, voice softer. "She taught me to read maps." The cowboy looked toward the path. "We ride now." The leader hesitated. "Storm will turn that road to clay." The cowboy's reply was simple. "Clay still carries feet." The woman tugged gently at his sleeve. "There is another danger." "Speak it," he said. She looked away, voice cracking. "If grandmother helps, she becomes target too." He held her gaze. "Truth without witness dies." She closed her eyes, weighing fear against purpose. When she opened them, resolve had taken root. "Then we go." The four riders stepped back, giving room not as allies but as men who recognized a sacred choice. The leader lowered his hat respectfully. "May the wind not twist your words," he said. "And may silence not bury yours," the cowboy answered. They left the corral and crossed the wet earth, rain sinking into their boots. The land grew quieter the farther they walked, as if even birds refused to speak near secrets. When they reached a narrow path between cedar trunks, the woman paused. "This trail tests hearts," she whispered. "Hearts survive tests," the cowboy replied. She placed her palm against one cedar and murmured a soft phrase in her ancestral tongue, breath steadying with each syllable. The cowboy watched, not interrupting, recognizing he was stepping onto ground shaped by people before laws were written. After the quiet prayer, she spoke again. "Grandmother taught me that land listens. Then we speak with respect," he said. They walked deeper until the sound of rain softened under thick branches. A fold in the land opened into a hidden clearing, where a single small hut rested against the foot of a grassy slope, smoke rising in a thin line like a thread tied to heaven. The woman exhaled with fragile hope. "She's alive." Before they could move closer, an old voice called from within the hut. "Step forward only if your hearts tell truth." The woman gasped softly. "Grandmother, it's me." The door creaked, revealing an elderly woman wrapped in earth-colored cloth, her hair braided long with feathers and beads of worn history. Her eyes were sharp as river stones, yet gentle with stories. She looked first at her granddaughter, then at the cowboy, reading them like pages. "The council hunts your shadow," she said to the woman. "I know," the woman whispered. The elder nodded slowly. "Truth is a heavy guest." The cowboy bowed his head slightly. "We seek answers." The elder stepped aside. "Answers are costly." They entered the hut. Inside, dried herbs hung from wooden beams, and a clay bowl of earth sat at the center, stirred with carved bone. The elder pointed to the bowl. "Sit, speak. Land will decide truth." The woman knelt first, placing both hands on the dirt inside the bowl. The cowboy followed, touching the soil with reverent calm. The elder spoke softly. "What do you carry unseen?" The woman's voice trembled. "I saw a forged map." "Whose land?" the elder asked. She looked up, eyes wide, voice a whisper that shook the hut. "Apache burial ground land." The hut fell silent. Even the rain paused. The elder slowly closed her eyes. "Then the council plans theft," she said. The cowboy breathed deep. "She risks her life for truth." The elder nodded, voice now like a prayer. "Truth must be written in hands, not ink." The woman leaned closer. "Grandmother, do you have the original map?" The elder looked into the fire. "Yes." The cowboy's eyes widened. "Where?" she whispered, like speaking to the flames. "Buried under the Willow Lake stone." The woman gasped. "Then we can prove it." But the elder raised one trembling hand. "Proof is not enough." "Why?" the cowboy asked. The elder turned, tears pooling. "Because someone already searches there." Thunder cracked, but it came from footsteps outside the hut. Slow, heavy, determined. The footsteps outside were slow and deliberate, the kind that announced presence instead of hiding it. The cowboy placed one hand gently on the woman's shoulder, grounding her like weighted cloth in rising wind. The elder closed her eyes briefly, breathing a slow prayer through her nose. "He found us," the woman whispered. The cowboy spoke low. "Not confirmed." The elder stepped away from the fire, retrieving a small bundle wrapped in hide. "Truth needs legs," she whispered. The footsteps paused outside the door, stopping directly at the threshold. No knock came, no voice called out, only silence, the kind that carried intent. The cowboy moved slightly so his body shielded the woman. "Who stands outside?" he called. A man's calm voice answered. "A messenger with orders, not bullets." The woman gasped. She recognized that tone, not cruel, not warm, but trained. "Council envoy," she whispered. The elder nodded slowly. "Their words travel faster than storms." The cowboy kept his voice steady. "Speak your orders." The man outside replied with unnerving composure. "Return with me at first light, all of you." The elder frowned. "All?" "Yes," the envoy said. "The council demands testimony." The woman clutched her chest. "Testimony becomes trap." The envoy responded. "Silence becomes guilt." The cowboy replied softly. "Guilt becomes weapon." A moment of rain-filled quiet followed. Then the envoy added, "I carry a signed warrant." The woman trembled. "They made one already," the envoy answered. Council wastes no ink. The cowboy asked, "What are the charges?" Paper rustled in the damp air. "Tampering with official maps." The woman shook her head. "I saw them. I never touched them." The envoy replied, "Perception alters truth." The cowboy responded firmly, "Truth alters perception." Another short silence, both sides aware the argument could turn endless. The elder opened the hide bundle quietly, revealing a faded cloth strip covered in hand-drawn ink symbols, old tribal mapping marks, not the council's stamped borders. The woman whispered, "Grandmother, the original." "Part of it," the elder said. "The oldest layer." The cowboy leaned in closer. "Can it prove land ownership?" The elder breathed deeply. "It proves that land was gifted, not purchased." The woman's tears returned. "Then their deed is fake." The envoy outside heard her words through the thin wood panel. "Be careful," he warned. "Speech without sworn ground is wind." The cowboy asked, "Why bring a warrant alone?" The envoy hesitated, then spoke quietly, "Because I doubt my own orders." The woman's eyes widened with fragile hope. "Then help us," the envoy answered, voice tight. "I cannot betray signed law," the elder replied. "Then serve older law." Wind rattled the hut roof, lifting a corner of bark like a whisper trying to escape. The envoy finally asked, "What do you seek to prove?" The cowboy spoke gently. "That land remembers truth." The envoy exhaled slowly. "Council demands bodies at dawn." The elder stepped to the door. "We give minds, not chains." "Refusal becomes defiance," the envoy warned. "Defiance becomes history," the elder answered. The envoy fell silent, shaken by her certainty. Then his voice shifted, lower, more human than official. "If you run, riders will track you." The cowboy replied, "Tracks fade in rain." The envoy added, "Council has dogs." The woman covered her ears, whispering, "There is no safe path." The elder placed her warm hand over the woman's. "There is a true path." The cowboy straightened. "We must recover what lies under the willow stone." The envoy heard, "That lake is watched." The cowboy answered, "Then watchers learn patience." The elder turned toward a woven basket and pulled out a tiny clay vial sealed with ash. "You will need this," she said. "What is it?" the cowboy asked. "Dust of memory," she whispered, "thrown only when truth is cornered." He nodded slowly, accepting it without question. The envoy outside shifted his steps, voice filled with a new tone, something close to warning or fear. "If you leave tonight, you break law," the cowboy replied. "If we stay tonight, we break souls." The envoy pressed his palm flat against the door. "At dawn I return." His footsteps slowly faded into the rain. The elder faced them both. "The Willow Lake waits for no coward." The woman rose, trembling but resolved. "We go now," she said. The cowboy lifted his hat brim. "Lead the way." They stepped into the cold night, rain hitting their faces like falling truths, and from the far hills a distant glow flickered, as if a fire had already been lit by unseen hands. Night settled deep across the land, draping everything in a quiet that felt older than law. The rain slowed to a whisper, leaving mist clinging to the trees like forgotten breath. The cowboy walked slightly ahead, scanning shadows, while the woman followed beside the elder, steadying her with one hand. The woman asked softly, "How far to the lake?" The elder answered, "One valley, one cliff, one prayer." The cowboy looked back. "We can manage valleys," the elder added. "Cliffs require courage." They continued through the narrow trail, their boots sinking into soft earth still warm beneath its wet coat. The night smelled of cedar smoke, riverstone, and the long patience of ancestors. The woman spoke again, voice thin. "Grandmother, why keep only part of the map?" The elder's eyes did not turn. "Whole truths blind men hungry for power." The cowboy nodded slowly. "Pieces protect until hearts prepare." The elder tapped her staff lightly against the earth. "Pieces grow heavier than whole things." They reached a rocky overlook where fog curled around the ledge. Below, the moon faintly reflected off still water, broken only by tiny ripples like whispered warnings. The woman stared at the faint glow. "That's the Willow Lake," the cowboy asked. "Is there another way down?" The elder pointed to a narrow descent. Only this, steady steps, no rushing. As they descended, stones shifted beneath their boots, sliding quietly into darkness below. Every sound felt magnified, as though the land itself took note. Halfway down, the woman paused. "What if someone waits?" The cowboy's voice stayed calm. Then they waited for truth. The elder murmured, "Waiters are not always patient." When they reached flat ground, the lake spread before them like black glass. Near the edge stood a lone willow tree, its branches long and heavy, brushing the surface like fingers writing on water. The woman whispered, "I used to play here." The elder nodded. Children sense truth before adults deny it. The cowboy approached the willow slowly. "Where under the stone?" The elder lifted her staff and pointed toward a wide, flat rock, half covered with moss. "There." The woman crouched, brushing the moss away with shaking hands. Beneath it, faint carved markings appeared, circles, arrows, and shapes not found in council maps. The cowboy knelt beside her. "Help me lift." Together they pushed, arms straining, mud slipping under fingers. The stone shifted with a dull groan, releasing a breath of cold air from the earth below. Inside the shallow cavity lay a sealed rawhide packet, wrapped with twine so old it seemed woven from time itself. The woman gasped, voice breaking. "Grandmother, it's still here," the elder whispered. "Truth survives when buried in love, not fear." The cowboy gently removed the packet and held it against his chest, as if afraid night wind might read it. "This proves original landlines?" The elder nodded slowly. "Yes, and names of first claimers." The woman's eyes filled. "Then council deed is false," the elder corrected softly. "Council deed is loud." The cowboy stood, looking toward distant town lights, barely visible through mist. "We must show this before dawn." The elder raised her hand. "Only with sacred process." The woman asked, "What process?" The elder drew a small circle in mud with her staff. "Land must witness reveal, not men." The cowboy frowned gently. "How does land witness?" the elder whispered. "By returning truth to its breath." She gestured to the willow branches swaying with soft rhythm. "Open it beneath willow wind." The cowboy and woman knelt again. Slowly, carefully, they untied the ancient twine. The rawhide unfolded, revealing layered parchments, each drawn with hand-inked lines, tribal markers, burial boundaries, and names written in old script. The woman covered her mouth. This proves everything." The cowboy held the top sheet toward the faint moonlight. "This gives you voice." The elder whispered, "Voice creates enemies and allies." The woman's hand trembled. "If we show this, council falls." The elder replied, "When towers fall, dust blinds." Before they could speak again, a small branch snapped across the lake's edge, not from wind, not from animal movement, but from a boot step. The cowboy stood quickly, eyes narrowing. Another branch snapped. The woman whispered, "Someone followed." The elder closed her eyes in sorrow. Truth shines too bright to hide. A shadow separated from the tree line, silent, slow, and familiar. The envoy stepped forward, hat dripping with rain. But his voice spoke different now, softer, broken. "I saw the light of that willow." He looked at the open parchments, eyes wide with shaken faith. "And I came to see whether truth breathes." He lifted his hand, not a weapon, but something wrapped in cloth. "Because council sent 2 envoys tonight." He unwrapped the cloth slowly. "And I am not the one they trust." The envoy stood beneath the willow's shadow, rain streaks carving lines down his face like worn ink. His boots sank slightly in the wet earth, yet he didn't move closer. His eyes were fixed on the opened parchments, and something inside him shifted, not anger but awakening. The cowboy stepped slightly forward. "Why carry cloth?" The envoy raised it gently. "Because I found something hidden." The woman whispered, "From the council." He nodded once. "Taken from a locked drawer." The elder watched him carefully. "What drove your hand?" His voice cracked just enough to show truth. Doubt finally outweighed obedience. He knelt near the willow, keeping respectful distance. Inside this cloth is council ink. The cowboy asked, real or forged? The envoy swallowed. I believe forged to look real. The woman trembled. Then they planned for silence. He nodded, eyes lowered. They feared burial names. The elder's voice lowered like a prayer. Burial names are sacred truth. The envoy finally met her gaze. They wanted land emptied. The woman's voice cracked. For profit. The envoy shook his head slowly. For expansion, power needs land. The cowboy spoke with quiet strength. Power without honor poisons ground. The envoy unwrapped the cloth. Inside lay a thin sheet of council parchment, stamped with an official wax seal. But beneath the wax edge, the ink bled unevenly, showing signs of chemical alteration. The woman covered her mouth. They tampered ink. The envoy nodded. I matched it to 2 other documents. The cowboy asked, Does anyone else know? The envoy whispered, Only one man, and he vanished. The elder closed her eyes. Truth-tellers walk dangerous paths. The cowboy studied the parchment. This and the original map together. The elder finished for him. Can shake council walls? The envoy looked toward the lake, voice guarded. Council sends riders by dawn. The woman asked, To arrest us? He hesitated. Or erase evidence? A cold wind rippled through the willow leaves, making them whisper like distant voices. The cowboy held the 2 parchments together, aligning edges. The council ink failed to match the older tribal lines, leaving a clear seam of truth. This shows deception, he said. The envoy nodded. But law listens to courts, not lakes. The elder stepped closer, her voice carrying ancestral authority. Courts borrow power from men. Lakes borrow power from eternity. The envoy looked down. I fear they burned the other pieces. The woman whispered. Then grandmother saved last hope. The elder said softly, Hope must travel faster than fear. The cowboy placed both parchments into his coat. We ride before sunrise. The envoy lifted his hand. Wait. The cowboy frowned slightly. Speak. The envoy looked back toward the dark trees. I was not followed, but someone else already waits. The woman stepped closer. Where? He pointed toward the shallow ridge above the lake. I saw a lantern there, no rider sound, the elder whispered. Silent watchers are most dangerous. The cowboy scanned the ridge. No movement, no silhouette, only faint light hidden behind fog like a half-seen eye. The woman whispered, Maybe the other envoy. The first envoy shook his head. No, he rides with uniform. The cowboy asked, Could it be Council Scout? The envoy clenched his jaw. Scouts don't carry lanterns. A long silence stretched. Then the elder spoke, voice deep and grounded. This lantern belongs to someone who wants to be seen. The cowboy narrowed his eyes. A message. She nodded slowly. Or a trap shaped like invitation. The woman whispered, We cannot stay here. The envoy stepped forward for the first time, lowering his voice. I can help you reach Old Trading Road, the cowboy asked. Safe? The envoy answered with painful honesty. Safer than staying, not safe. The elder placed her staff into the mud, marking a small circle. Paths must be chosen, not drifted. She looked at her granddaughter. Speak your choice. The woman's voice trembled but held. We carry truth to daylight. The cowboy nodded. Then we move. The envoy wrapped the forged parchment again. I will stand with you. The woman asked. Even against counsel. He lowered his gaze. Against lies, not law. They turned toward the path, but before stepping, the elder stopped them. One warning, she said. Truth saves only when revealed to the right ear. The cowboy asked, Whose ear? The elder's eyes glimmered with ancient sorrow. The land commissioner is not your only obstacle. She lifted her chin toward the ridge, where the lantern flickered once. Then 2 more lights appeared beside it. Not one watcher. 3. 3 lantern lights burned on the ridge, spaced apart like watchful eyes in the mist. No voices, no motion. Just the hushed, patient glow of figures who wanted to be noticed without revealing names. The woman clutched her coat to her chest. 3 means authority, the envoy whispered. 3 means verdict. The cowboy kept his posture calm. Verdict needs hearing first. The elder stepped forward, staff sinking softly into the wet soil. Those are council silent flames. The envoy tensed. Silent flames. She nodded, voice grave. Lanterns carried by chosen enforcers. The woman trembled. Chosen to do what? The elder's answer chilled the air. Finish disputes without witness. The cowboy exhaled slowly, steady and unbroken. Then we must move unseen. The envoy shook his head. Unseen is impossible now, they marked us. The woman looked out across the lake. We have truth. Why hide? The elder answered softly. Truth without timing becomes casualty. A long quiet settled, broken only by willow branches brushing water in slow, sorrowful rhythm. The cowboy turned away from the ridge. We take the trading road. The envoy lowered his voice. They will track fresh prints. The cowboy reached into his coat and held up the tiny clay vial the elder had given. Dust of memory. How used. The elder closed her eyes. Scatter where choice must bend, the woman whispered. Can it shield us? The elder shook her head gently. It reveals hidden hearts. The envoy stared. Hearts, not trails. Trails are dirt, she said. Hearts are roots. The cowboy nodded with solemn understanding. We carry it for the moment ahead. The lanterns on the ridge flickered, then began to move slowly, descending like stars dragged down by human hands. The woman gasped. They're coming down the slope. The envoy whispered. We have minutes, not hours. The cowboy motioned toward the northern path. Go. Quiet steps only. They moved swiftly, but silently, following the narrow line of rabbit-woven dirt that curved behind the willow roots and into brush. The elder walked last, her staff gently sweeping leaves to blur their trail. Halfway up the rocky slope, the woman stopped suddenly, pressing her hand to her forehead. Wait, the cowboy turned. Pain. She shook her head slowly. Memory. The elder placed 2 fingers on her temple. Which memory? Tears welled, but not from fear. I remember who signed first. The envoy leaned closer. Who? She whispered like confessing to sacred earth. A woman, not a man. The cowboy felt the truth settle like iron. Name holds power. The elder nodded deeply. Names carry rightful chains or rightful keys? The envoy asked. Whose name? The woman swallowed hard. May Lauren. The envoy froze. The commissioner's wife. The woman nodded. She signed before council existed. The cowboy's eyes narrowed slightly. Does she live? The elder whispered. Yes, hidden by illness near the Red Mesa. The envoy stepped back, shaken. Then council claims are void, the elder corrected softly. Void only if she speaks, the woman whispered. She must confirm original gift. Thunder grumbled through distant clouds, like earth debating gods. The cowboy lifted his chin. Then our road changes. The envoy stared into the dark. You aim for Red Mesa? Yes, the cowboy answered. The woman touched his arm, voice trembling. It's days away. The cowboy replied. Some truths need distance. The envoy warned. Council will chase with full riders. The cowboy's voice did not waver. Then they chased truth, not criminals. Behind them, brush cracked. The 3 lanterns were now only a few dozen yards away, their light pressing through fog like knives through cloth. The elder whispered urgently, Time for dust. The cowboy opened the clay vial and poured a small line across the path behind them. The wind caught it, swirling faint blue flecks through the air like tiny spirits waking. The envoy stared. What does it do? The elder answered, Shows each man the truth he serves. Moments later, they ducked behind a natural stone ledge. The 3 lantern-bearers reached the dusted trail and stopped dead. The first lantern-bearer stepped forward, then froze, staring into unseen distance. The second slowly lowered his lantern, trembling. The third fell to his knees, whispering something nobody could hear. The woman whispered, What are they seeing? The elder's voice was a heartbeat of ancient sorrow. Their true reflection. The cowboy nodded once. Keep moving. They turned toward the hidden pass, stepping into deeper night just as a new sound rose behind them. Not hooves, not rain, a single church bell from far across the valley, ringing at midnight where no church stood. The midnight bell echoed across the valley, each tone slow and hollow, as if rung by unseen hands beneath the earth. The woman pressed both palms over her ears, shaking. "There is no church here," she whispered. The elder nodded grimly. "Not anymore." The envoy stared into the darkness. "Who rings a vanished bell?" The elder spoke softly, voice like wind through mourning stones. "A soul who refuses silence." The cowboy stepped ahead on the narrow path, guiding them away from the willow's glow. "We keep moving." Sound can't seize feet. As they crossed a low ridge, fog parted, revealing the old trading road, not a road of wagon wheels, but a faint, ancient footpath marked by stones half buried, each one carved with worn symbols. The woman slowed, fingertips brushing a stone. "These stone, I remember them." The elder looked ahead. "Your ancestors walked this before council was born," the envoy whispered. "Then this road is forbidden land." The elder corrected quietly. "Not forbidden, forgotten by design." They walked until the valley thinned and wind came colder. The woman's breathing tightened. "How long until Red Mesa?" the elder answered. "If hearts stay strong, by tomorrow's dusk." The envoy frowned. "Council reaches us sooner." The cowboy paused, studying the land. "We split risk, not truth." The woman's eyes widened. "What do you mean?" He turned slowly, voice steady like stone that refused to erode. "One carries the map. One carries the forged proof. One carries memory dust. One creates a trail they follow." Silence struck like lightning without sound. The woman shook her head. "No, we stay together." The envoy whispered, "Separation invites danger." The elder's eyes glistened. "Sometimes danger chooses the strongest soul." The cowboy looked at each of them, calm but firm. "Council doesn't chase small groups. They chase what looks like victory." The woman trembled. "Then who acts as victory?" The cowboy rested his hand over his chest. "Me." Her voice cracked like thin ice. "No, no, you can't." He spoke softly. "Truth must arrive. I can delay pursuit." The envoy stepped forward. "You'll be taken." The cowboy's gaze didn't waver. "Taken is not broken." The woman clutched his coat. "You helped me stand," he answered with gentle conviction. "Then stand without my shadow." Tears slid down her face, rain unable to hide them now. "Why you?" He gave a small, weary smile. "Because I can endure silence longer." The elder placed her hand upon his arm, voice trembling like distant thunder. "If sacrifice is chosen, it must be honored, not pitied." The envoy stepped back, struggling with conscience. "There must be another way." The cowboy looked to the horizon, where faint dawn threatened the sky. "Another way was stolen before we met." The woman fell to her knees. "You don't owe me this." The cowboy knelt with her, lifting her chin. "Owing is debt, caring is choice." She sobbed quietly. "I can't lose another protector," he whispered. "Then become one." The elder opened her pouch and placed the original map into the woman's hands, the weight deeper than ink. "You carry truth of land." She placed the forged parchment into the envoy's hands. "You carry truth of deception." She dropped the memory dust vial into the elder's palm. "How you carry truth of hearts." Then she turned back to the cowboy, voice breaking. "What do you carry?" He touched the worn metal on his belt. Not a weapon, but a small engraved token shaped like a circle with 3 lines, worn smooth by years. "I carry my promise." Footsteps echoed faintly from the valley behind, distant but approaching. The envoy looked back. "They're near." The cowboy stood, breath steady. "You must leave now." The woman begged, "Please, I don't walk into their hands." He placed his hat on her head, slow and deliberate. Some men fight with bullets, some with truth, some with time. She held his hand with both of hers, refusing to release it. "Will I see you again?" He looked into her eyes, not promising heaven, not offering lies. "If truth survives, I remain with it." The elder whispered, "Go, child. His road bends here." The woman finally let go, but only because hope demanded it, not because her heart agreed. The cowboy turned toward the valley, walking back into the mist as the first council horses appeared as dark shapes through the rising light. He did not run. He walked forward like a man carrying fire. Mist thickened across the valley floor, curling like breath from unseen spirits. The cowboy walked alone, boots heavy with wet earth, though his steps remained steady. Behind him, the three others disappeared into the night path. Truth divided, but purpose joined. From the shadows ahead, saddle leather creaked, and low murmurs settled into formation. Riders emerged one by one, their coats dark as rain-soaked stone, council lanterns hanging like judgment between stars and soil. The foremost rider raised his chin. "You walk without escort," the cowboy answered calmly. "I walk without fear." Another rider nudged forward. "Where is the woman?" The cowboy did not blink. "Gone to seek peace." The leader narrowed his eyes. "Peace does not outrun warrants." The cowboy replied, "Warrants do not outrun truth." A tense silence rippled, broken only by the slow stamping of horses. Rain began again in thin threads, like sky stitching a wound. "You can guide us," the leader said, "or stand against law." The cowboy's voice held unshaken ground. "Law written on false ink is sand." The leader leaned forward. "Sand buries the uncooperative." The cowboy raised his head slightly. "I do not seek safety." One rider circled slightly, testing him. "Where did she go?" The cowboy's eyes darkened, not in anger, but in sacred duty. Far from men who crave soil more than souls. The leader exhaled sharply. "You make her a martyr." The cowboy answered softly, "She makes herself a witness." Thunder crawled across the hills. The leader signaled, and three riders dismounted, stepping closer. None drew weapons. Authority spoke through posture, not steel. The first spoke, "You will guide us." The cowboy did not move. "I will not." The second asked, "Will you fight?" He shook his head. "I will endure." The third whispered, almost intrigued, "Why endure for her?" The cowboy's answer came slow, deliberate, "Because the land remembers who stands." The leader slid his glove off, revealing a branded ring, council seal, sharp-edged and cold. "Last chance," he warned. "Speak her direction." The cowboy stared into the storm. "No." A deep stillness fell, the kind that comes before avalanches or broken vows. The leader lowered his voice. "Then we hold you until she return, by force." The cowboy closed his eyes briefly, breathing like a soldier remembering prayers. "Hold me, but not with chains." The riders exchanged uneasy glances. Men who expected rebellion rarely knew how to confront willing sacrifice. "Why no resistance?" one asked. "Resistance honors anger," the cowboy said. "Silence honors truth." Before they could answer, distant wind carried a faint sound, a woman's cry, not of fear, but fierce call. "Stop!" The council riders stiffened. The cowboy's eyes snapped open. Through the fog, the woman appeared, breathless, soaked, desperate. The map pressed against her chest like a beating heart. The elder and envoy followed close, unable to stop her, faces heavy with dread. "Don't take him!" she cried. The cowboy spoke firmly. "Go back." She shook her head violently. "I won't leave you." He stepped forward, raising one hand. "If you stay, truth dies." Her voice cracked. "Truth dies if you're lost." The leader pointed at her. "Hand over the map." She hugged it tighter. "This map belongs to ancestors." The elder raised her staff. "Land does not bow to council breath." The envoy stepped forward, shaking. "She carries original ownership." The leader's face hardened. "Then she is the highest target." The cowboy's voice thundered without shouting. "You touch her, you stain every grave beneath this earth." Lightning lit the ridge, revealing a fourth silhouette approaching, not on horseback, but on foot, wearing a long dark coat. The elder gasped. "Not him," the envoy whispered, trembling. "The commissioner himself." A tall man stepped into view, lantern light carving deep lines across his face. His voice was soft and almost tender, which made it colder. "The girl carries map." The woman's knees weakened, but she stayed standing. The commissioner raised one hand. I will accept trade. Silence crushed the valley. Give me the map, he said, and the cowboy walks free. The woman's heart broke through her tears. The cowboy spoke first, voice fierce and gentle. Don't trade truth for breath. The commissioner offered one final sentence, calm as death. Choose land or the man who guarded you. The woman stared at the map, then at the cowboy, hands trembling between love and legacy, heart and homeland, one life or many. The woman stood frozen, clutching the map as if it were her own heartbeat. Rain slid down her cheeks, mixing with tears she could no longer hide. The commissioner extended his hand, calm as winter frost. The cowboy whispered her name only in spirit, not aloud, for he honored her choice before she even spoke it. Look at me, he said gently. Her eyes found his, drowning in a storm deeper than weather. There is a third road, he murmured. The commissioner's eyes narrowed. No third road exists. The cowboy shook his head slowly. Only for men who see walls. The elder stepped beside the woman, voice trembling with ancestral weight. Truth can live without map, if enough mouths carry it. The envoy understood first. Or write it in a place no hand can steal. The woman's breath caught. Where? The elder placed a frail hand over her chest. In living memory, not dying paper. The cowboy nodded. Maps burn. Voices endure. The commissioner frowned. Meaningless poetry. The council requires proof. The woman suddenly stood taller, grief becoming iron, fear turning into bone. Then I will become the proof. The commissioner blinked. Explain. Her voice steadied with sacred courage. I will sign a sworn testimony, witnessed by tribes, townsmen, traders, and elders, stating the land was offered by original hands. Then every man, woman, and child will speak it, 1,000 voices stronger than ink. The commissioner smirked. Words can be silenced. The elder lifted her staff, thunder rumbling behind her words, not when spoken by a nation. The envoy added, she will swear before clergy, judge, and families. Silence becomes impossible. The woman took a slow breath, then looked at the original map, and in one motion of heart over relic, she knelt, pressed the map to the earth, and covered it gently with soil, not destroying it, not hiding it, returning it. She whispered, land holds its own memory. The cowboy smiled, not with triumph, but with peace. The commissioner stepped forward, voice sharpening. That map was your leverage. The woman rose. No, my voice is... The council leader glared at the cowboy. Then we take him anyway. The woman stepped between them. Touch him, and the world will know why. The elder spoke like wind carved in stone. The council cannot seize a man who surrendered freely. The commissioner stared at the cowboy. Then answer me, why sacrifice? The cowboy's answer came soft as falling ash. Because land without honor is graveyard, because she deserved choice, because some men are bridges. For a moment, something shifted in the commissioner's eyes, not guilt, not mercy, but the faint pain of a man forced to face his own shadow. He turned away. Our pursuit ends. For now. The council riders withdrew one by one, lantern lights shrinking like dying stars. The commissioner was last to turn. Voices are fragile, the woman replied firmly, only when whispered. The storm calmed as they left. Silence settled, not empty but sacred. The envoy sighed with relief, shoulders trembling from the weight he'd carried. The woman swayed, exhaustion crashing over her. The cowboy caught her before she fell. She whispered, Did we win? He paused, brushing rain from her brow. Winds are loud. Truth is quiet. She looked up at him. Will they return? He nodded. Yes. Fear flickered, but he gently held it still. But next time, you won't stand alone. The elder placed her hands over both their hearts. Tonight, land reclaimed its storytellers. They began walking away from the valley, dawn light slowly breaking, not triumphant, but earned. The woman looked back only once, whispering into the wind, I will speak until silence surrenders. The cowboy tipped his hat. Then truth lives. And with steady, unwavering steps, they moved toward a future not safe, not easy, but right. Where sacrifice did not kill hope, it built it. If this story stirred something inside you, don't leave just yet. Hit like to honor every voice that refuses silence, and subscribe so you never miss another story shaped by courage, truth, and heart. Share this video with someone who believes land, legacy, and dignity matter more than ink or power. Leave a comment with one word that defines this tale for you: honor, sacrifice, voice, or land, and tell us what you would have chosen in the final moment. Turn on notifications, because more stories like this are coming, and each one carries a lesson worth remembering. Your voice keeps these stories alive.